All right. By the way, I used to record the classes, but I will still record the classes, but I will not uh, allow. But the students, you don't have to open your cameras. I would love for you to keep your cameras closed. We will still share the recordings of the class via the YouTube channel and via the podcast, but we will not give um, credit to the school. We won't mention the school. We will allow you to watch it for academically, for so that you can satisfy your own preparation for your exam and so on. But moving forward, we will these lectures, as much as they are being conducted by the institution in Jamaica, it is also being promoted as a part of a lecture series by my company, the Neoliberal Corporation. And so moving forward, you will not be required to open up your cameras when you're speaking, and you will not be required to do that. I have to be very because I've been cited for that. So moving forward, I've decided that we're not going to be this. We won't promote or give any promotional value to the school. Um, but and so we're going to be very careful about me mentioning the school, talking about the school, referencing the school. If I do, I'll edit it out, but it will still be available um, on JTS online platform. Um, Anyways, but welcome to Caribbean Thought. As I said to you, this is a class that we will not be doing. We're not going to be saying too much. We're really taking care of housekeeping matters. One, the class will meet via the online an online platform, which is the modality um, via Zoom. We will use the Zoom platform, and we will meet 6 o'clock Jamaica time, 7 o'clock US Eastern time, from 7 to 9. I usually provide breaks. Sometimes sometimes I go on beyond 3 hours. Sometimes the class is for 4 hours or 5 hours. If I go beyond the 3 hour mark, you are welcome to leave the class. However, if you come to the class 1 hour late, don't expect to leave 2 hours after. However, if the class is supposed to end at 9 o'clock, then and it's going beyond, then you arrive late, but you have to leave early. Just let your professor know. We'll discuss that some more next week. But I wanted to make a very important point. Part of what we will do in this class, we will contend for current issues as well. Um, and I was raising the point that recently the Jamaican government announced that they are going to be importing cameras, state of the art cameras, to spy on Jamaicans. And the question is, what does that say about the right to privacy? Now, you may argue that having spy cameras is a deterrent to crime. But then one may respond by saying, through a rebuttal, and say, well, yes, deterrent to crime. Jamaica is a very small country, but have one of the highest crime rates. Yes, that's true. Nevertheless, you cannot. Yet there's a saying that we have in Jamaica: you jump out a frying pan, you land in a fire, and so therefore you have to give cadence to that. Um, you fixing one problem cannot create another problem, and so therefore, as a civil, rational country, then we have to think about all things. Say, for example, you do a cost benefit analysis when you are making an economic decision. Because when you make a decision, there are costs, but there are benefits. Now, if the costs outweigh the benefit, are you going to go with that decision? No. But if the benefits outweigh the cost, then you're going to go with that decision. Nevertheless, there are those when you study and measure the benefits and the costs, there are those who will manipulate the information, manipulate the costs, manipulate the benefits if they want to advance a particular thing. So then, therefore, that's where you as academics, you as critical thinkers, will stand as vanguards, as arbiters of truth. Yes, helping to guide, helping to discern, and helping to hold people accountable because you have been exposed to a level of education, a level of intellectualism, a level of critical thinking that is able to dissect the truth and falsity. Now, on the issue of the constitutionality, has anyone thought about the constitutionality of the Jamaican government bringing spy camera to spy on Jamaican citizens? Which now, first of all, where does the camera come from? Okay, who is paying for the cameras? How much does it cost? Secondly, we know technology have technology is easy to manipulate technology. So the question is where is the technology coming from, and will other people have access from overseas? Or who owns the technology? Will it be completely owned by the Jamaican government, or will external people still have access to the technology? The second thing, or the third thing, is that you cannot use the cameras to hold people accountable. Let us say somebody commit a crime and you use the camera and we find evidence on the camera. You go to court. Someone can bring a lawsuit that challenge the Constitution, the legality of that evidence, the legality of using evidence that is not constitutionally enshrined. Yes? Using evidence. You're using evidence that is illegal or not, okay, there, or the legality. Therefore, it's very important for Jamaican government, for the Jamaican people to have open discussions about major decisions that may impose upon Jamaican people's lives. Just as though the Jamaican government can have an open discussion about the legalization of obeah. And first of all, we're going to have an open discussion about the legalization of obeah when obeah is part of our Afrocentric tradition and Afro spirituality, which was demonized and dehumanized and made illegal by our colonizers. This is not for that class. We will talk about that later on in the semester. Okay? But just as though we can have an open discussion about the legalization of obeah, we can have an open discussion about the constitutionality and the legality of using spy camera within Jamaica because then it can create a problem. So you need, first of all, does it require a referendum? Does it require bipartisan decision making, or legislature or parliament to make the decision, so on and so forth. Those are some of the things that when we come to class, we want to as Caribbean people, we want to think about some of those things. Lilith, you have your hand up.
Sir, 2 questions. Where are you lecturing from? Here in Jamaica or overseas?
I'm in the US.
You're in the US. Okay. Why do you use the term spy and not surveillance? Spy camera, surveillance camera. Why the term spy camera? For the Jamaican government to spy on.
What is how do you define surveillance? But it doesn't even matter whether you use surveillance or spy, same difference. When I wrote the article in the Jamaican Gleaner, I used the word surveillance. But however, I wanted to use the word spy because part of this class is to make people uncomfortable. Part of this class is to make people critically think. Caribbean thought is part of, when you do Caribbean thought, you will do critical thinking because part of Caribbean thought involves post-colonialism. Post-colonialism looks at the lingering effects of colonization and post-colonialism. Okay, so yeah, I use the word spy because in a sense it is spy. You're being spied on. You can say surveillance, but surveillance connotes spy. But yes, I know it might suggest
the gangs are being monitored via a surveillance camera.
Okay, but I'm not saying that it is wrong. What I'm saying is that I'm talking about the constitutionality and the illegality. Fine.
Yes, I understand.
Even if you erect a crime to catch gangs, you're going to catch people, law-abiding people as well.
Yes.
Right.
So how do we not, as it relates to law-abiding citizen, because they use whatever thoroughfare or whatever space just as the person who would have been committing the illegal aspect. And you're saying that is it legal
Yeah.
for the legality of it?
What does the Jamaican law says about the government using surveillance cameras erected in public spaces to
But
spy on Jamaicans? What does it say about that? To spy on
whenever
people or to
whenever a
monitor Jamaicans?
camera is erected, the
Mm-hmm.
public, there's always a sign to say that the area is under surveillance. Those I can speak about. I can speak about the one that I can see, or there is no sign. But each building that I go in, or the thoroughfare, it is there's a sign that is always placed there to say that the place is under surveillance.
Okay.
I
Okay.
can't speak to the one that do the spine, but the one that does the surveillance on the thoroughfare, on the building, on the public, on the houses, I can speak to that, that there's always a sign erected that this area is under surveillance.
So the
The
question is,
legality of it,
all right,
uh,
let me say that the surveillance and the right to privacy in Jamaica. Dear Sir, Madam, what about surveillance laws in Jamaica? Is it legal for the Jamaican government to install surveillance cameras to monitor Jamaicans without first passing laws that explicitly authorize such actions? Laws that by nature could infringe on our sacred right to privacy.
mhm.
Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holness, tweeted that this is what technological integration into national security looks like. Jamaica Eye represents an ecosystem that will transform how we prevent, detect, and respond to crime by leveraging a growing network of CCTV cameras across the island. This initiative allows law enforcement to have real-time access to public feeds, improving surveillance, enhancing coordination, and ultimately helping to save lives. The system is built, and by the way, yes, ultimately helping to save lives. But every initiative is ultimately created to save lives, even slavery. Even Hitler was what he did was created to save lives. I'm not saying that this is not true.
Don't even go there. He never tried to
Let us
save
continue.
anybody.
But yeah, but let's continue here. But remember, some of these you look at the argument. The system is built on transparency, accountability, and innovation, ensuring that the rights of law-abiding Jamaicans are respected while giving our police the tools they need to stay ahead of criminal activity. Now, so I responded by asking a number of questions. One, have Jamaicans been informed, truly informed about what this surveillance entails and the implications it may hold for their private lives? Are there safeguards in place to ensure that our rights are not trampled on in the name of security? And more precisely or pressingly, do these cameras operate within the boundaries of existing Jamaican law? That's the first questions. Can anybody answer those questions? Well, we're going to get somebody to answer them. Okay, I plan to do that um, at this class. Second thing, where precisely are these cameras being erected? Are they meant to capture traffic violations or to deter and document actual crimes occurring in public spaces? What do our existing laws say about surveillance equipment and its admissibility in Jamaican courts? So fine, you might capture it. The police might use it to coordinate and to make arrests. But what does the law say about using such um, technology in Jamaican courts? Is such evidence plausible, or is it a slippery slope toward authoritarian oversight? Third question. This brings us to the heart of democratic governance. Has Prime Minister Andrew Holness engaged in transparent dialogue with the Jamaican people? I mean, well, the next question is, and does this policy require a referendum or at least bipartisan support in Parliament to move forward? These are important questions, and just so you know, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do these things. We have this. I live in Philadelphia. We have these cameras in various places, but before these cameras are erected, there have to be discussions and there have to be certain laws have to be followed and so on and so forth. This brings us to the next question, the fourth one. Moreover, where is the surveillance technology coming from? That is the most important part for me. Where is it coming from? And what is the cost to the Jamaican taxpayers? And how long are we committed to the arrangement? That we don't, sometimes you hear things happening, but there are some questions you don't know anything else. As academics, as critical thinkers, that's where we come in. We're not going to wholesale accept everything, okay? Even if it sounds good, even if it sounds like it will save lives, okay? We still have questions. Yes?
Yes, I understand that. We still have questions.
And so Jamaicans are proud. We are free people. So we don't want to trade our liberty for security without question or consent. That's the crux of the matter. Remember, I am not knocking it. What I'm saying is how things are done as a sophisticated, civilized country with laws and process. Because what has been our problem is corruption and the abrogation of due process and laws that allows for more corruption. And by the way, one of the things we're going to discuss in this class is the corruption perception index in the Caribbean and among countries that are predominantly dominated by Black and brown people. And I use the word Black in quote unquotes, okay, because we'll talk about Black when we talk about the Afrocentric paradigm, Afrocentrically, or within an Afrocentric paradigm. Now, I need to say this. Nevertheless, I like the idea. But just as the legalization of OBIA requires, we said that, open discussion, so does surveillance that may affect Jamaican people's freedom and privacy. So this has to be open discussion. There has to be an open discussion and supported by the people, because Jamaicans may challenge the constitutionality of this system in the future. Because you may arrest somebody, take them to jail, take them to court, and then they throw it out because they might say, well, this is illegal, Your Honor. Yes? And then therefore the guilty people walk free because we have not followed due process. Anyways, why did I raise that issue? I raised that issue as to, this is what I'm going to be talking about this is what I'm talking about when I say we will contend for current trends. We will speak to various issues. We'll have discussions about what's going on in Jamaica, what's going on in Turks and Caicos, and immigration, and how the natives are being outnumbered by the immigrants. So then you start thinking about immigration laws and how some countries have draconian immigration laws because they are trying to preserve their identity. And so this is important. And then we can talk about what's going on in Trinidad, because recently the Trinidadian chief of police was arrested because he was in bed with the criminal forces, he was bringing the guns in.
She was reinstated today because there was lack of evidence. Did you see that news?
Well, the cameras need to go up sooner.
Pardon me? I didn't hear that.
The cameras need to go up sooner, man. Where we need to put the cameras? That's where the cameras need to be.
She was reinstated today because of lack of evidence. All right?
But what happened to the evidence that caused them to arrest her in the first place?
There was none.
So it was.
You couldn't find it. There was no camera.
They arrested the chief of police on hearsay?
Well, they have to deal with that now that she was reinstated to her post. So let's see where that goes from there.
I wonder who conducted the evidence. The same police? Who conducted the investigation?
Whatever.
Anyways, we're critical thinking about thinking and thinking what was previously thought. But this is some of the stuff that we will consider, while at the same time looking at current trends that have come to shape and given a voice to the Caribbean. Some of the books we want to look at in this class is The Social Origins of Democratic Socialism, written by Nelson W. Keith and Novella Z. Keith. And this book, I realize, is not in Jamaica, published by Temple University Press. And it's an amazing book written by former professors at the college about the social origins of democratic socialism in Jamaica and by extension the Caribbean. Um, we will we will raise some issues from that book. We will raise some issues from the book written by Ramesh Ramsawan, The Challenge of Structural Adjustment in the Commonwealth Caribbean. Structural adjustment is a very important concept in this class. It's a very important concept or policy to understand as Caribbean people economically. Um, Structural adjustment. What is structural adjustment? You can probably start writing it down, structural adjustment. And Ramesh gave one of the most succinct and terse definition, which I find quite unique and novel about the structural adjustment. But we won't talk about that. But we won't delve into that yet. We will also, there's another book called They Came Before Us, a book that was recently introduced to Caribbean thought that was never introduced to the course before. It was introduced last semester for the first time because I discovered it while doing research, preparing for this course, and doing my research at Georgetown and at Temple as well. I do some research work in Afroecology at Temple University. But the book is called They Came Before Us. Sorry, They Came Before Columbus. In the African presence in ancient Africa. So we don't, in this course, we don't start from slavery. We don't start from a defeatist position. We start from before slavery. We start from even before Columbus in 1492, because we know Africans were coming to the Caribbean way before the Europeans, and we have proof of it. And we have a book that you may not know of, but now you can talk about it beautifully. You can talk about Ivan Van Sertima, okay, who have documentary evidence, who have documented the evidence anthropologically, linguistically, showing that African sailors came to the Caribbean long before the Caribbean, before Columbus. And it's while the Europeans were actively trading with Africans. They were trading with Africans and learning stories, learning about the East and the West. And and whatever Christopher Columbus heard, he took it back and then went to Europe to Ferdinand and Victoria to get money to commandeer a trip and a ship to come to the Caribbean or to the New World, because they learned about it from the shores of Africa when they were in Africa trading with them, learning how to build ships, learning how to navigate the world, learning, because of course then you said, well, the Africans could, but then you could say, well, we heard that Africans were like monkey. Africans were stupid. They never have religion. They never have family. They knew about trading. Then what could the Africans offer Europeans? Now we are learning that Africa gave the world civilization and was the first advanced civilization. So, but the Europeans learned about the East Indies and the West Indies and mixed it up, but they learned about it, and then they tried to make their way here. And then, but we'll talk about that a little bit. Talk about that because this is a 200 level course, and the students last semester said, "Sir, I thought I was doing a PhD." So I won't go into it too much, but I'll leave you some. You'll have resources to go and do further reading and exploration. Shannon.
Thank you, sir. You mentioned some of the things that I was going to touch on. When you mentioned about Africans not having families or a civilized nation, when a lot of what was taken came from the African race. It was the African race that other races were created, and it was from the African race that they developed not only their technology, but their whole civilization and their architectural structures and how to build.
Yes.
It was from the Africans that we first found how men are supposed to have norms or roles and what women were supposed to be.
Shannon, wow. Who is this Shannon talking? Very
This
good.
is Shannon Collins, right?
All right, Shannon. Another Shannon this in this class, like the last one. This is good. Yes, we'll talk about that. We're gonna talk about some stuff that some of you would have known about and some of you don't know about Africa, about African religiosity, about Obia, voodoo, about who is the founder of the revolution in Haiti. Many of you thought it's Toussaint, but no, the Haitians don't see Toussaint as the founder and the leader of the revolution. They see Dessalines and they see Dottie Bookman, who
They
was
see barbecue.
okay. They don't, but Toussaint was in the French military because they said there's no way this idiot. They use the word idiot. There's no way this simpleton, this person who was not an intellectual, trained in the French army and so on and so European, who was not exposed in European traditions, was able to fight the British and to create this resistance. Sorry, not the British, the French. And so it was more expedient for them to give it to a mulatto or a mixed black man or whatever the case is that was in the French army because there's no way that any simple person could defeat Napoleon. But the Haitians, if you go to Haiti and ask, who is the founder of revolution? Who is, they talk about Dessalines, they talk about Dottie Bookman, very little credence given to Toussaint. But of course, if you read books like, if you read C.L.R. James' Black Jacobins, C.L.R. James' Black Jacobins is saying something else. C.L.R. James, who is from Trinidad, here is this man from Trinidad writing about the Haitian Revolution in Haiti. Now he does a very good job. He's writing it from a subaltern perspective or history from below, from a Caribbean perspective. We are giving voice to our own history. Yet he was not acting within the Afrocentric paradigm. He was still using European tropes, European understanding, European epistemology, European axiology, European philosophy and anthropology to make determinations about the Haitian Revolution. So, and when I just met C.L.R. James and the Black Jacobins, I was like, great, oh, this is great, this is amazing. And yet I find it quite powerful because there are some powerful things to get from, and we're going to share next week. I talk about C.L.R. James briefly. I always introduce the class with C.L.R. James because in the Black Jacobins, powerful. You talk about the revolution and the nature of the revolution, but he spent a lot of time in America and went to American school and was trained by European or by American school and exposed to European understanding of his African and Caribbean tradition. So while he meant good, he still wrote within the tradition, a Eurocentric tradition. And so therefore you will understand what the difference between Afrocentrism and Eurocentrism. In fact, what is the Afrocentric paradigm? What is Afrocentricity? Because what we are learning about Afrocentricity and Afrocentric is not Afrocentric. Because to be Afrocentric is to celebrate a position of victory. It is to look at your history, look at your position, starting not from a defeatist perspective, but from a position of power, a position of victory. So you can't start from slavery. You can't start by saying Obia is bad. You can't start by saying nothing black no good. You can't start by saying that. You cannot. What is the professor talking about? Yeah, we will talk. Yes, God help us in this class. God help us in this class. Yes, because when you are then you will learn about the Ethiopian Orthodox Church and the Ethiopian Orthodox Church and how the Ethiopian Orthodox, and they have what 78 sacred books, and their books are much older than what we have as the King James Version Bible with our 66 books. The Ethiopian Church is the oldest organized religion, older than the Roman Catholic Church. Roman Catholic Church is an organized institution. Given Christianity was given a Roman identity, to celebrate and to privilege the church over any other religious community or community. So to when the institutionalization of the church also um, um, predated or included um, the doctrinal position of the church. What does that mean? We, so therefore, the end of this class, we would talk about should theology transcend culture? Should theology transcend culture? That's a question for you to ask. We will discuss that. Should theology transcend culture? Because you will hear the professor said, "I'm not a Jew." What is he talking about? But anyways, but are we talking about identity politics or identity Christianity? I won't get into it right now. I'm whetting your appetites here. We talk about the issue of agency and consciousness, and the issue of the organizational dynamics of Caribbean societies. How is our society organized? We will reference Edith Clarke, because Edith Clarke, one time in My Mother Who Fathered Me, she wrote the book My Mother Who Fathered Me. She wrote My Mother Who Fathered Me, and she wanted to understand why certain communities in certain rural areas practice a kind of family. In fact, it's as if they never have family, a kind of community, the organization of the family, cohabiting and sleep and so on and so forth. And she didn't see family, but then she said, "Oh, they practice that kind of family because that's what happened. That's how they did it in Africa. That's what happened in Africa. So that is why in certain communities they practice a certain kind of family life, because that's how it. Because when you in certain African communities, not true. Where did Edith Clarke get it from? From a kind of sociology in the 1970s and 80s that still relied on Eurocentricity, because Africans have family. In fact, the family that we think, the family that exists in the way we see family in Europe today, is the kind of family that has been bastardized, but is taken from a kind of family, a kind of organized family institution, okay, from Africa, which has been morphed into Western society, but is a bastardization, as many people would say. People say that Western civilization is a bastardized version of African civilization, or what was it was intended to be. Of course, Walter Rodney wrote the book How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Walter Rodney is a Guyanese from Guyana, and of course, you know about the Rodney riots. You know about the Rodney riot if you guys read your history. The Rodney riot in Guyana, and how even in Jamaica in the 80s, we banned Walter Rodney from coming to Jamaica. He couldn't come to Jamaica. There was a big thing in the 80s with Walter Rodney and the JP and the PNP. And of course, there was Grenada, and Bishop was executed or assassinated by the CIA working with the FBI, because they wanted a kind of government in Grenada. Like how they want a kind of government in Venezuela. Like how they want a kind of government in Cuba. Like how they want a kind of government in Ukraine. Like how they want a kind of government in Palestine. A kind of government, a kind of government, a kind of independence, a kind of people that will continue to accept post-industrialism or colonialism, or will continue to accept the status quo, the masters, the former masters' concept and idea of what culture, and what their reality should look like. And if you go against that, then you're executed, like what they did in Togo to Epipanio. Yes, and
Like what they did to Gaddafi.
Gaddafi. Oh, who said that?
Lilith Henry.
I'm telling you, Lilith, you must be my relative. But yes.
I like what they want to do now with Ibrahim Traore.
Wait, you were at my last class? By the way, nobody in Jamaica knew about Ibrahim Traore until I started talking about it.
Better not saying that. You need to come to
Yeah, we
Jamaica
need
and
to.
see the support that guy have here in Jamaica.
I know, because
We demonstrated for him last week.
Yeah, but we've been talking about our class at Jamaica Theological Seminary. We knew about this guy from last year. We wrote an article and we've been promoting him and then we wrote an article in the Jamaica Gleaner promoting him. And suddenly I just see him talking about him now.
Really? Oh
Yes,
my God.
we wrote an article in the Jamaica. When did you start hearing about Traore? Let me tell you. When
2024 August.
oh, okay, really?
Yes.
Usually
And I
his
can tell you that he returned home yesterday he was in Russia at the Victory Day celebration.
yeah, yeah,
That is
yeah.
how much I follow him.
That's very good.
He was escorted by a private jet of Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
He returned home being escorted by 7 fighter jet back to Ouagadougou.
Mhm.
So don't try me, sir.
Oh my God, very good. Very good. I love it. I love this.
Big
Now,
up Lilliet.
yes, this is listen, man. You want to follow these great leaders that identify with you. You want to promote them. That's some of my qualms. Yeah, but you want to promote these people. Very good example. I know the Jamaican government. They've been since many people learn about Traore. It's like many people are now expecting the most from their government now. Suddenly, people are expecting the most from the
But
from.
shouldn't we? Shouldn't we? This neo-colonialism thing
Thank you.
that
Yes,
govern us, we
we.
need to get away from it.
Let me tell you, man. We play political politics, political.
Mm-hmm,
PNP
mm-hmm,
and JLP. If you PNP,
mm-hmm,
you let me.
mm-hmm.
And if you JLP, no, I'm not no PNP and I'm not JLP. Okay, I'm Caribbean. I'm Jamaican. I'm
Mm-hmm.
American. I'm a part. We should listen. You eat, and if I was PNP,
Mm-hmm.
I would say I would hold my government accountable. I would say you're not. You need to do the right thing. You're not doing the right thing because
But other countries, Ghana make 850 million US dollars from gold since they asked the French to leave. We here in Jamaica, we do have resources to protect
yeah,
also.
we're selling off over the last 50 years. We've been selling off our resources, our beaches, and
Everything,
we're not making
everything.
money. Look what
Our
they did.
soil.
Guyana have bauxite,
We
right?
have bauxite too,
We have
it's
bauxite,
not
but
governed by us.
1957, when we found bauxite, we thought, and by the way, Jamaica was supposed to be the pearl of the Caribbean, our GDP rival that of Singapore. What happened?
Mm-hmm,
What happened today? Okay, fine. Let's put 100. Guyana have oil. They found oil.
mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm going to tell you what they did. In 2022, they were doing some stuff with oil and so on. And can I tell you what happened with the money? 12, Guyana only makes 12%.
Who gets the rest?
78% of the profit goes to overseas, to post-industrial countries.
So now you see, when Chayori asks, leave my country, leave my resources, let my resources benefit my people.
But what is
Now
the
you understand.
what political will people have to do? Say, for example, we say, "Oh, let's just get rid of the Queen." People are in bed with the Queen. All right, fine. Let us have open discussions about African traditions like Obi and so on. Oh, it is evil.
As Chayori says, most of those people see us as subhumans.
Mm.
We are not like them, we are below them, and they think they can come and take everything that we have, and it is okay. But
Good.
until our minds are changed against all that is happening around us from way back, we will never be free.
Wow.
Because we think that if we don't go to the United States, we're not going anywhere. It is not so. We
True.
have we
Yeah.
have we have so much resources in this country that is being taken away daily,
Yeah.
and we are not benefiting as a people. So I support Chayori 1,000%.
Let
I
me welcome
support
you
him.
guys though to the 2025 series of lectures in Caribbean thought at the lectures in Caribbean thought. Today we embark on a critical journey asking, is there a paradigm for the study of Caribbean thought or Caribbean studies? Should there be one, akin to the Afrocentric paradigm, championed by scholars like Dr. Mulefi Ashanti and Dr. Amamazama. Amamazama is the chair of the Africology department at Temple, who is one of my professors. But these are not mere theoretical questions. They challenge the very core of how we understand ourselves as Caribbean people. our place in the world, and our trajectory for the future. While the answers may not be fully realized today, we will begin to explore them as we contend with the idea of a Caribbean that is unique to its people and place, yet constantly shaped by external forces adjudicating its future. And of course, when we talk about the origin of Caribbean thought, when the study of Caribbean thought was first conceived, its aim was largely historical, tracing a trajectory from colonialism, or the early from colonialism to the early 2000s. This timeline often emphasized resistance to imperial domination, the hybridization of culture, and the formation of Caribbean identity. But as our tools, but as our tools of critical analysis and historical understanding have developed, we've uncovered something unsettling. One, that our history as we know it is limited, if not corrupted. Much of what we know, or much of what we think we know about Africa or the Caribbean, and even religion, is a distortion or a bastardization. The Caribbean itself as an idea is an invention, and that's according to the Caribbean Reader. I think is Ivan Gervin. Born from colonial economic imperatives, geopolitical interests, and a socio-political framework dictated by the external powers. So in this light, I'm going to say it again. Our history as we know it is limited, if not corrupted. Much of what we think we know about Africa, the Caribbean, or even religion and philosophy is a distortion. The Caribbean itself as an ideal or as an idea is an invention born, and that's very important. The Caribbean is an invention. I won't even say anything else. But the Caribbean is an invention born from colonial economic imperatives, geopolitical interests, and a socio-political framework dictated by external powers. And I believe that, well, I won't say it. I won't give it away right now. But this is, I'm introducing you to the class. In this light, the Caribbean emerges as a hybrid creation. Hybrid. And you know what hybrid means, a mixture. In this light, the Caribbean emerges as a hybrid creation, one shaped by the forces of colonialism, globalization, and a lingering supremacist mold. Some of you asked about if we can put the books in the chat. The books are going to be on your syllabus, and but I guess you guys can write down some of the main books. Or I did say Dark Ghetto: Dilemmas of Social Power by Kenneth B. Clark, and of course the textbook, which was authored by your professor, yours truly. This is your main text: Neoliberalism, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty and Resistance. We will begin teaching from it next week. But I said to you that in this light, the Caribbean emerges as a hybrid creation, stemming from the fact that we say that it is an invention born from colonial economic imperatives, geopolitical interests, and a socio-political framework dictated by external powers. From that, we say that the Caribbean emerges as a hybrid creation, one shaped by the forces of colonialism, globalization, which is what I write about, and the lingering supremacist mold. So this mold continues to affect the fortunes of Caribbean nations and their people, as evidenced in contemporary global politics, the US-China tensions over Jamaica, or Russia's actions in Eastern Europe. So these dynamics highlight the persistent vulnerabilities of small nations in a world dominated by superpowers. In a world dominated by superpowers. And of course, that is what I talk about in the book Neoliberalism, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty, and Resistance. Now, these dynamics highlighted the persistent vulnerabilities. We said that, which turned our attention to the invention of the Caribbean, because we said that if the Caribbean is an invention, then we must interrogate the narratives handed down to us. Again, if the Caribbean is an invention where it which involves being birthed from colonial economic imperatives, geopolitical interest, and a socio-political framework dictated by external powers, then the question is, and then from that we emerge a hybrid creation, hybrid identity and culture. Then I said to you, from that we must then interrogate the narratives handed down to us. So what is the Caribbean? Is it merely a product of colonial extraction and hybridity? Can it reclaim its agency by articulating its own paradigms of identity and thought? The answer lies in examining our cultural, historical, and spiritual foundations. Too often, the Caribbean has been defined against Africa. Against Africa. Let me say that again. The answer to the question of what is the Caribbean, stemming from an interrogation of the narratives that has been handed down to us. Again, the question is it merely a product, the Caribbean, of colonial extraction and hybridity? If we say it is an invention, can we reclaim our agency, our own agency? We will define agency later on by articulating our own paradigms of identity and thought. Many of you are social work students. The word agency is paramount, it's pivotal, and very important to the practice of social work. The word agency is very important to what we are contending for in this class and what we are talking about, agency. And if you were to study Africology or Afrocentricity properly and the Afrocentric paradigm, then you will understand agency. Now, so agency is a word that you will know and I will define and spend some time with later on to define in this class. Agency and consciousness are connected. Agency and consciousness. People in social work, you are providing agency, but you are also empowering people to develop agency within themselves. When I was in the Caribbean, there was much talk about agency. And when we talk about agency, we're talking about we were thinking about it from the perspective of institutions that work on behalf of people. Agencies, institutions that people can go to protect and to advocate and so on and so forth. But when we talk about agency in this regard, we're talking about agency within themselves, building agency within people so that they can act on behalf of themselves. They can act in their best interest. Because many people adopt the name Black, which has been created to mean nothing black, no good. Okay? And so that blackness comes with it a kind of consciousness against what we know as African. And we have adopted European paradigms that denounce African spirituality and philosophies and attitudes in favor of Eurocentric framework that create a kind of blackness. And so this is how Black people must behave. So the answer lies in examining our cultural, historical, and spiritual foundations. And too often the Caribbean has been defined against Africa, adopting European paradigms that denounce African spirituality and philosophies in favor of Eurocentric frameworks. These same frameworks perpetuated ideas of Africa and by extension, Blackness or Africanness. Blackness. Let me say this again. These same frameworks perpetuated ideas. What frameworks? The frameworks. I said to you, too often the Caribbean has been defined against Africa by adopting European paradigms. So we are defining our traditions, our Caribbean culture within a European lens. against Africa. So within our European baptisms, within our new European identities, or European paradigms, we are making judgments against our African cultural identity. Of course, if Europe does not see eye to eye with Africa, how then must Jamaica or the Caribbean that embrace European traditions and perspective adopt and embrace legalization of some African traditions? They'll see it as evil because we have been properly assimilated. And so Frantz Fanon, who wrote the book Black Skins, White Mask, which we will talk about in this class, and he also wrote the book Wretched of the Earth. He said, the Caribbean, the African, we must begin a history of man as tabula rasas. Because we cannot accept our independence or our freedoms on the basis on the good virtues of our former masters. One. And two, how are we accepting our freedoms from another man? It would then mean that that man is our God. It may mean that, first of all, freedom is not freedom if it is given freely to us. So if it is given freely to us as a gift, like it's Christmas. I am just free, like you. I don't need a freedom packaged and a ceremony to demonstrate that. You needed no freedom to get you needed no ceremony to get your freedom. Why do I need a ceremony to get mine? Anyways, whatever the case is, these are the frameworks perpetuated. These same frameworks perpetuated ideas of Africa and by extension blackness that are steeped in oppression, degradation, and dehumanization. To be black in this logic is to be othered. To be black is to be othered, associated with negativity and subjected to oppression. But must we begin the history of the Caribbean from colonial trauma? Must we begin with slavery, when Columbus came here and dominated, must we begin that? So then we have to now rethink Caribbean thought. Rethinking Caribbean thought. Borrowing from Afrocentrism. Perhaps the solution is to begin, as Frantz Fanon suggested, with a tabula rasa, a blank slate. Yet, even as we acknowledge the damage wrought by colonialism, we must recognize that our history is not solely one of victimhood. It is also a history of triumph and resilience. Stretching back to the civilization of Kemet, ancient Egypt, as it is called by Europeans, and beyond. Egypt was originally called Kemet. While the Afrocentric paradigm centers Africa in the study of African peoples and their place in the world, Caribbean thought must grapple with its own complex hybridity. It cannot simply adopt Afrocentricity wholesale, but must instead forge its own epistemology and axiology, one that recognizes the intersections of African, European, Asian, and indigenous influences in the Caribbean experience. Epistemology. What is epistemology? This is a branch of philosophy. Yes? So epistemology. So I will stop there because we will talk about that. When we talk about truth, how do you know anything? That's what epistemology deals with. How do you know, as a Caribbean people, what is the epistemological basis of our truth and our knowledge? So I said, so yes. So we need an Afrocentric paradigm that recognizes the intersection of African, European, Asian, and indigenous influences in the Caribbean experience, and one that centers the Caribbean people's agency, starting not from oppression, but from resistance and victory. Resistance and victory. Now, thirdly, seeks to reclaim a sense of identity that is neither derivative of Africa nor Europe, but uniquely Caribbean. So moving forward, and we wrap up the class here. The Caribbean paradigm must therefore move beyond the binaries of black and white, colonizer and colonized. It must seek to articulate a philosophy of victory, a worldview rooted in the celebration of our cultural hybridity, historical resilience, and intellectual creativity. As we dive deeper into the semester, we will explore these themes, asking what it means to reclaim our narratives and what frameworks best suit the study of a people and a place, born of unique challenges and possibilities. So, let us critically engage, question, and reimagine. And so, by the end, we may not only answer whether there is a paradigm for Caribbean thought, but help to create one that resonates with the realities of our time and place. Let the exploration begin. Welcome to Caribbean Thought. And so next week, when we begin the class, we will explore the course outline, 1. And 2, after we complete the course outline, we will go straight into the question of the facade of Caribbean independence. Again, we will begin the first reading, which is The Facade of Caribbean Independence, because the book, which is your textbook, the textbook is Neoliberalism, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty, and Resistance. The preface is available. You can get the preface anywhere, but this semester I'm going to hold you accountable. Buy the book. I have copies of the book. You can reach out to Chantel. She will probably tell you how to get the book. She can send it to you. You can go online, Amazon. You can get the book, the ebook. You can get the.
Sir, interject, please. The
Yes.
Facade of the Caribbean.
Say it again.
The Facade of.
No, that's not the name of the book. The title of next week. The title of the lecture.
Yes, that's what I wanted.
The Facade of Caribbean Independence. The facade.
Caribbean. I did not get the last part, sir. Caribbean what?
Facade of Caribbean independence.
Oh, yes. Thank you. That was the word I wasn't hearing. Independence.
Sorry, yes, the facade of Caribbean independence. And I hope to, that's going to be the title of the lecture next week. It's really the preface of the book, of your textbook, Neoliberalism, which is the preface of the book. It is deep. The preface of the book is one of the best part or the highlight of the book.
Can you put the book name in the chat, please?
Chantel, can you put it in for me? By the way, if you guys don't have I am going to, Chantel.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
We will email the students the course outline. Okay, it's available.
Yes, sir. I want to do that earlier, sir.
It's available on Moodle. If you go on Moodle, you should click on it. It downloads directly, and then you can send it to them. If you could send it to them for me, please.
Yes, sir.
Actually, yeah, but yeah, the course outline. But go on Moodle. The whole of this is there. In fact, let me share my screen right now. I understand what Sarah's saying here. Well, I see what. So the question is, reflection paper 1. Is there a paradigm to Caribbean thought and Caribbean studies? So the question is there a paradigm to Caribbean thought and Caribbean studies? One that is Afrocentric within Caribbean academia. Read Emma Mazama's The Afrocentric Paradigm and answer the question in your review of the Afrocentric Paradigm. The article is available on the outline on the online portal. But if you click on this right here, it should take you there, I think. I don't know, I think so. But you go to WhatsApp as well, they'll send that to you. But you can respond in to this chat, or you could just send a quick email if you don't have access to this. But it'd be great. I want to see you guys responding, utilizing JTS Online more, okay? If you can. This one, still use still write academically, still write professionally. although all of your chatting and stuff, still use the argument, the lines of argumentum, okay, or argumentation, or philosophical reflection. Yes, okay. Still, next week, last semester I did it too late, but next week I will talk about writing. I'll do a quick thing about writing, how you write academically in this class that I'm looking for. Um, Introduction, point one, point two, point three, conclusions. So now, yes, go ahead, Anna.
I was gonna ask where the chat was, but I found it.
Gossa. Gossa down. They say that in Jamaica still? Gossa down.
Nobody says that. Please don't say it.
Hey, I'm gonna be 46 in June. But I feel like I'm 25 always. But guys, thank you guys.
Third question, please. It's just 1 day a week for class. Say
One day.
yes.
Yeah, 1 day a week, 3 hours.
Fine, fine.
And by the way, if you fail the course, if you do very well in the class but fail the exam, you fail the course.
We know that.
All right. Listen, so I want you to ensure.
How, sir, and why?
I'm just saying that some people. No, I'm just letting you know.
Well, sorry. So, matter, please. With JTS, you have to pass both coursework and exam.
Yeah, JTS, that's JTS.
That's been so for years. You can't pass only one. Pass both coursework and.
Which is new to me, which is something that I'm not used to that. But for JTS, that's the policy, and that's fine. Okay, guys, we're gonna stop right here. I won't do anything else because next week we will begin by going over we will look at the syllabus, and then we will look at your reflection. You will introduce yourself by sharing your reflection to the question, is there a paradigm to Caribbean thought and Caribbean studies, based on your reading on the Afrocentric paradigm and even my reflections today. What is your understanding of the Afrocentric paradigm, and what would it look like in the Caribbean, or in Caribbean studies, or Caribbean thought, or Caribbean academia? What would it look like? All right.
Or will this be graded?
Yes. And this is the grade. Submit the work and you get a full grade. Okay. All right. The first paper is get to know you. The professor wants to know you. I want to know the students. So the first thing I give you to write, I am not going to be hard. I'm going to tell you to do something, to write it, and you're going to submit it. And the first thing, I want to understand you, I want to get to know you, I want to see how you write. Sometimes I don't get to see how people write because they rely heavily on AI or other stuff. But I love to see how you write, because sometimes if you use AI too much, it writes without your emotions. It takes away your Jamaicanness, your sweetness. I want to, okay. So if you're going to rely on AI, make sure you input in AI a lot of your ideas. You input into AI all your brainstorm thoughts, and then you ask AI to, based on how you have written and what you have written, to organize your thought so that you satisfy the question, based on what you have written. Now, if you say to AI, if you put back this in AI, Professor Renaldo wants me to read Amma Mazama's Afrocentric paradigm and answer this question. So do that for me. It will do it and give you an answer. But the answer is not going to, I use AI so much that I know what AI looks like. I know how AI talks. I don't even have to use the technology. Now, your professor allows you to use AI in this class. It's very important because this is the 21st century, and more organizations and industry are going to use AI. And so if you don't know how to use AI properly, then by the time people start using it, you're going to be left behind. So my job is not to deter. My job is not to scare you away from something that your generation is speeding towards. Soon we're gonna have to be start thinking about the end of school. Yes. So you have to know how to use technology that is at your disposal in a responsible way. If you just put a question in AI, it's gonna generate stuff it pulls from the World Wide Web. But if you put your ideas, your thoughts, your your punctuations, how you speak, if you write and put your stuff there and curate it, then it will organize your thoughts, your ideas, and it will generate it in such a way that give credence to you. It will do more. It will take your work and really help you. But if you only give it one line and ask if you give it back just the question, it's going to take from everything else. But so you have to learn how to curate your questions. To say, okay, so what are your ideas? When you read anything that jumps to your mind, whatever ideas you have, you want to write it down. If you're reading something like, if you hear the professor talking and something keeps gnawing at you, you write it down, an idea, and then you write it in a sentence, create it in a way, and then you flesh that out and you put it into AI and said, I'm working on a paper, reflection paper. This is what I have so far. I want you to be true to my personality, my emotions, and how I write. Don't create stories. Okay. Stick to what I've given you. And we're writing within a Caribbean mode. And this is my ideas so far. Help me to flesh it. So what are your ideas? What do you think? It's an editing tool. You work with it like that. But as I said to you, I can accept that because I'm an editor in chief. I also have a journal, and I allow my writers to edit, but I tell them that they have to write a certain way. You cannot just, and I know how to catch my writers. Same thing I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you to abandon the technology, but I'm going to tell you to use it responsibly. Okay. All right.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Come on. That's about it for now.
Okay, sir. Thanks.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, just to clarify. So for next week, the response that should go in for next week, where it's going to be one paragraph and it should be in the chat. It's not a paper that we should be submitted, just in the chat.
Yes, correct.
Okay,
Informal.
all right.
Want to know how you write, how you think, how you tick, how you click. That's why this work, once you submit it, you get a full grade. I'm not giving, okay, but make an impression. I want to see how you talk. What I gave this assignment, and this guy last semester, he did a paper though. I'm saying if you want to write a 2-pager, you can, a 1-pager, an exceptional job with the paper. I was impressed. Okay. Let me see what you guys do with it. Then you guys can write something, and you might go and see a student write something. You guys can respond. Your reflection could be a response to a student's reflection. Okay, but let me see how you guys engage with it. All right, you guys have the freedom to do it to how you want to respond. The class will also do a group presentation towards the end of the course. For the last 2 classes, you will present on an island. I will divide you in. You will be divided into groups, maybe 6, 7. I'm not sure. Next week we'll start working on we work on that. We'll put you in groups, and there's 2 group assignments that you will have, or 3. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much. This is the introduction. This is really not a. It was supposed to be a very quick class, and then next week we'll begin with the course outline. But we actually did have a class today. But thank you, guys. Next week you will share your reflection, your brief reflection, and introduce yourself. That's how we will introduce tomorrow. So next week, you'll do most of the talking, I think, because you will all talk. We'll get to know you, get to introduce yourself, where you're from, why you're studying at JTS, how are you answering the question. All right. Any final thought before I go?
This
No.
is going to be an interesting class.
Oh yes, it will be an interesting class.
Thank you.
And hope you guys enjoy the ride. But let us pray. Lord God, we thank you for this amazing opportunity to meet today or this evening. All things work together for good to them that love you. And so, Lord God, we believe that it is not by chance that we are here at this time. I pray that you will make this opportunity work for us. Help us to grow and to develop academically, intellectually, philosophically, really, theologically, spiritually. Help us to grow and to develop, and help us to expand, grow our ministries. And Lord God, we pray that you would open the students' minds, their thought processes. Help us to have one of the best classes ever. Help us to have just a whale of a time. I pray that the students will find the concepts engaging and refreshing, and not just find it engaging and refreshing, but they themselves will share what they have learned, use it in their walk, in their journeys in life, in their careers. Help them to grow and develop. Bless them financially, and protect them from dangers, and use them to be profound, to be dynamic students who will take what they will learn in this class to the next level. The students always overtake their professors. The student always overtake the teacher. I'm looking forward to that. That every student in this class will overtake their professor, ultimately. We'll start writing about neoliberal concepts. We'll start writing about globalization. We'll start talking and facilitating discussions in their churches, in their communities, or wherever they are in the world. Bless them tremendously, financially. If they are not doing well physically, mentally, I pray, Lord God, that you bless them therapeutically and biologically. We pray that they will live their lives, Lord God, so that they are accentuated into the thing that they're praying for, so that when we pray, we will pray without ceasing, and when we dream, we will dream without sleeping.